God, if I could mate with a trumpet. Sam and Max, chances are you've never heard of this duo, and to be fair, their presence not only in gaming but in media in general has been rather scarce the last decade or so. Created by Steve Parcell, Sam and Max follows a dog and rabbit detective duo cracking bizarre cases and participating in gay sex as canon shut up. In terms of media, of course, it started with a comic run, and then in 1993 they started in their own LucasArts point-and-click Hit the Road. They were also in a short-lived cartoon in the late 90s, but recently their ventures have taken them to the trilogy of Telltale games. Telltale is of course the company known for Bone Out of Boneville, CSI Hard Evidence, and what is that one called? Oh yeah, Minecraft Story Mode. But between the years of 2006 to 2010, they produced a trilogy of games based on Sam and Max. Sam and Max Save the World, Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space, and Sam and Max The Devil's Playhouse. Now, because these games use the traditional Telltale formula, they each had a number of episodes. Save the World had 6 episodes, while Beyond Time and Space and Devil's Playhouse had 5 each. And today I'm taking a look at all 16 of these episodes and ranking them worst to best. Of course, this is only my opinion, but I also gauge interest by checking forums and seeing what other fans consider the best and the worst as well. So with that said, let's take a look at all 16 episodes of Sam and Max ranked worst to best. Okay, so like I said, I checked some forums to see what fans considered the worst of the worst, and it seemed 2 episodes always came up: Save the World's Culture Shock and Beyond Time and Space's Moai Better Blues. Between the two, more people thought Moai Better Blues was the worst episode. I gotta give the worst to Culture Shock. Why? Because it's my list, you big baby. Culture Shock is the first episode of the entire trilogy, and understandably, it's the least funny. It sets up, in my opinion, the weakest of the trilogy's stories, starting with Brady Culture, a failed child star who was beaten out by the Soda Poppers. But strangely, the Soda Poppers start worshipping him and vandalizing everything in the neighborhood with Brady Culture's face and the eye workout video. And if you want to say anything like, "Oh, I know your eyeballs got fat, you gotta try that video," shut up! Of course, it's actually a brainwashing video, and it's up to Sam and Max to stop Brady Culture and the Soda Poppers. One of the problems here is the humor. It's just not as funny as the others in Save the World. And the brainwashing plot, I don't know, I never really liked it as much as, say, the devil plot from the second game. It also seems rather redundant. Later episodes were able to just go back and forth through different areas a lot smoother, but here, go to Bosco's, go to the office, go to Sybil's, then Bosco's, then Sybil's again. It got tiring. Other than that, it's not awful, it's just easily the worst of the episodes for me. Okay, so the other of the worst episodes is the second episode of Season 2, Moai Better Blues. At first, I didn't see why this was so hated. I remember liking it somewhat, but looking back, yeah, this is pretty bad. Continuing the pretty loose story of the first episode of Beyond Time and Space, we find ourselves at Easter Island after Abe and Sybil get sucked into a Bermuda Triangle. It turns out when Sam and Max fall after them, they don't actually want to leave, rather, they use it as a vacation. But Sam and Max pick up that something's not right here, and the Moai statues explain that there's a dark prophecy in play, and it's up to Sam and Max to figure it out. Off the bat, this writing is so bad. Culture Shocks is pretty weak too, but I give credit the story at least tries to make sense by the end. Here, the funniest parts are usually random equals funny, which isn't what Sam and Max is built on. There's these seahorse people who speak Jamaican. Why? Random! Mr. Spatula is the bad guy here. Okay, I'll admit that plays on a joke in the first episode, but regardless, random! There's baby versions of people who went missing, like Jimmy Hoffa, Amelia Earnhardt, and Glenn Miller. Why are they babies? Random! The writing isn't funny here, not to mention all those characters I mentioned, completely irrelevant to anything else in the rest of the game. And there's a subplot about Abe and Sybil breaking up. I know for a fact Sybil's pregnant with Abe's baby, and I don't want to know how that f***ing works, but regardless, I know this plot is completely useless and adds nothing to the story. It's just not funny and kind of confusing to get through. So why is it not the worst over Culture Shock? Literally one joke.
My best friend Max has something very important to say to you.
Boobies.
Come on, that's hilarious. Alright, moving on to our mediocre tier made up of the next 3 episodes. The Mole, the Mob, and the Meatball is the 3rd episode of Save the World. Now, when I say mediocre, I'm more meaning these episodes just didn't leave an impact like the ones after them did. The Mole, the Mob, and the Meatball follows Sam and Max being alerted of the Toy Mafia. Apparently there's a mole inside of the Mafia, but he's not responding to any calls. So they head to Teddy Bear's, which is clearly a parody of Fred E. Fazbear's, and they figure out what's going on. Now, upon playing this on the remastered version, I loved picking up that Leonard here is the model used in Telltale Texas Hold'em, Telltale's first game. I can't remember how much of these Telltale references are in the old versions, but seeing a model used from a game nobody remembers, it's honestly touching, a great tribute to Telltale's history. The rest is pretty by the numbers, not a lot made me laugh. I will admit the Yo Mama interrogation got a chuckle out of me. It's decently funny, don't get me wrong, but nothing really stuck with me. A lot of my favorite episodes will have a few lines I find myself reciting from time to time. This is a perfectly serviceable episode, but not really anything particularly special. Okay, so the second in my mediocre tier is the 3rd episode of Beyond Time and Space, Night of the Raving Dead. Once again, not much against this one, I just don't find it as funny or interesting as, admittedly, the rest of Season 2. This one has Sam and Max heading to Stuttgart, specifically to a castle helmed by Jurgen, a vampire prince. Now, I gotta give credit, very few episodes of this trilogy actually have Sam or Max die for real. I mean, Okay, we'll get to that. But here, they die and become zombies. That's honestly really disturbing. But the rest is kind of standard. The humor is decent. I like the callback with Midtown Cowboys from Situation Comedy. Also, it's kind of weird seeing a normal-sized Abe Lincoln. I've only seen him as a huge marble statue in this game, so seeing the actual Abe Lincoln is just so weird. Also, the theater jokes are spot on.
Oh, it's ripping. But I was disappointed that Booth fellow wasn't in it. I hear he's quite the actor, and I was hoping to see him.
Thank you, Zombie Abraham Lincoln, for helping us teach kids more about irony.
But the rest, I could care less for. Not bad, just nothing too special here. The final episode of my mediocre tier is Bright Side of the Moon, the finale of Save the World. See, that's the downside of Save the World having 6 episodes, only 3 of them are good. Bright Side of the Moon has Sam and Max go to the moon. And I will admit, it's just inherently funny that Sam and Max's DeSoto is able to just fly to the moon, no explanation. I kinda like that. But the rest of it, I just don't think about much. Hugh Bliss being the major villain is a bit of a letdown in my mind. I feel like someone else could have done it and it would have been better. I got stuck when recording the final part. It never gave me the saw. I don't know, maybe the game glitch, but that sucked. However, this keeps in tone of the finales often being some of the most memorable of the season. And while I enjoyed some of the other Save the World episodes more, Bright Side of the Moon has its moments. A good finale for the first game, definitely worth it, just not my favorite of the episodes. Alright, the next 6 episodes make up my good tier. These are the episodes that are definitely good, just don't make my best tier. And the bottom of this tier is Ice Station Santa, the first episode of Beyond Time and Space. This one has Sam and Max investigating the North Pole, as it seems Santa is forcing his elves to make toys that are maybe, just maybe evil. Of course, it turns out Santa might be possessed, and it's up to Sam and Max to get to the bottom of it. What this episode does better than the pilot of Save the World is simply being funnier off the bat. Legit, the first joke is about Mr. Spatula the Fish trying to overthrow Max as president. That's so dumb, it's kinda genius.
You are my idol.
And Santa with a gun will always make me laugh. The North Pole setting is cool, but I have 2 problems overall with the episode. One, it's the shortest of the Beyond Time and Space episodes, if I'm not mistaken. I feel some of the writing could have used the length of, say, Chariots of the Dogs. The other problem, man, they couldn't have been any subtler with the big twist in this game, that's all I'm gonna say. Other than that, a solid start to Beyond Time and Space, definitely a good time. Next up is the second episode of Save the World Situation Comedy. This one has Sam and Max investigating a weird situation at the talk show of Myra's Stump. To get there, they must go through different genres of TV, including a cooking show, a game show, a sitcom, and my favorite, Embarrassing Idol, a parody of American Idol. So American Idol nowadays. God, I can't stand this show. Y'all remember that whole thing with the gas leak and Katy Perry fainted because she's the woman who released Wide Awake? But it was so obvious how fake it was. God, I hate this show. Each show you go through has a fun solution. The sitcom bit offers loads of options on how to screw up. The cooking show bit is just fun to make concoctions of man-made horrors. With that, it is shorter, kind of like Culture Shock, but it's funny enough to where I enjoy it. I'm a big sucker for TV production, so this episode was right up my alley.
Hey, Sam, can I?
No.
Okay, so next up is finally an episode from Devil's Playhouse, just goes to show how good that season was. The first episode, The Penal Zone, follows the introduction of General Skunkape, an intergalactic gorilla hell-bent on finding the Toys of Power, which of course Max has. This one admittedly plays it way safer than some of the other Devil's Playhouse episodes, which is admittedly why I love the season as much as I do. It really pushes that line. It's a perfectly fine episode. The Toys of Power is a cool concept that I really think sold this game for me. It sets up a roller coaster of emotions. I don't have much on this one. I think it's a solid enough time. While it's my least favorite of the Devil's Playhouse episodes, it's hard to call it bad. I mean, it's the first episode I've talked about on this list, so if that's anything to go by, well, let's just move on. Man, I can't go 2 entries without mentioning Save the World. And sadly, Save the World was the weakest in terms of episodes, despite having 6. But for me, the second best episode was Reality 2.0. Following Sam and Max finding out about a new hit virtual reality game titled Sam and Max This Time It's Virtual, Reality 2.0. Sorry, not enough people talk about that one. It turns out it's a game designed to make the real reality obsolete, which I love that completely goes against the motives of the cops, if you know what the COP stands for. The switching of reality to Reality 2.0 is so seamless, and exploring the stuff in Reality 2.0 is just fun. Like going to an actual online bank, how Bosco's store is like a store from a medieval game. Speaking of which, there was a huge controversy regarding the remasters replacing Bosco's OG voice actor with Oogie Banks. And honestly, for the first 4 episodes, I kinda got it. Oogie Banks is mad talented, but he really calms it down. I get why they replaced him, but it definitely didn't feel the same until this episode. Yeah, for some reason, this episode onwards, I had no problem with Banks as Bosco. I actually think he did really good as the character. Pair that with a callback to text-based adventure games, and Reality 2.0 is a creative episode, and definitely one of the best of Save the World.
I love you, Hugh Bliss.
Hi, I'm not Hugh Bliss.
I hate you.
Next up is the final episode of Beyond Time and Space, What's New, Beelzebub. Now, the go to hell trope has been done in plenty of media, but Sam and Max is the only one I can think of where they go to hell, and back, and to hell again. Yeah, it's kind of like the moon from the end of Save the World. It's such a stupid concept, it works for Sam and Max. Of course, Sam and Max go to save their friends from hell, where guess what? Sam and Max are feared entities there. That's f***ing hilarious. Of course, there's a big twist regarding a certain group from the games, a Satan that's more of an overbearing boss than an underworld ruler, and a whole lot of laughs. Like I said, Satan's one of those characters it's kind of hard to get right because of how many interpretations exist, but I think this guy, who I swear sounded like Matt Berry, does really good in the role. The different scenarios you have to go into where there's people like Bosco, Santa, and the DeSoto for some reason, all live in their personal hells, and I love that hell is just a cubicle office. That's my personal hell. The episode is a great ending for the second season, but it's not the best ending in the trilogy. Ending off my good tier is The City That Dares Not Sleep, the finale of The Devil's Playhouse. After the emotional roller coaster that was The Devil's Playhouse, it all comes down to this. Max has been transformed into a behemoth Cthulhu monster and is tearing up the city. Sam must team up with the friends of the past to go inside Max and save the day. The episode is very emotional and ends in such a somber, bittersweet way. The credits with Sam walking down the street, no music after what just happened, it's a beautiful and tragic thing that happens to come from the trilogy where a rabbit wins presidency over Abraham Lincoln. It's just a beautiful ending, and honestly, I can't believe it came from Sam and Max. The only thing holding it back is I could have used a few funnier jokes here and there. Also, Paperweight being a full-time character is tragic. I do not like this guy. Kicking off my top 5 is They Stole Max's Brain, the third episode of Devil's Playhouse. Like I said, very few episodes actually have Sam or Max die, so it's definitely a disturbing sight to see Max with his head cut open. Of course, the concept of his little buddy dead has Sam go on a violent rampage going around, interrogating all suspects. This, of course, has been dubbed by fans as Noir Sam, and without any other context, he's hot. Anyways, this is just a good episode. It shows the love Sam clearly has for his partner. So for his partner to just be a lifeless corpse, it really does mess with him. The interrogation sequence is a bit confusing, but getting past it, the rest is pretty funny. For me, nothing quite matches Sam in this. There's something strangely scary about when he's just snarling at the mole people in the beginning. I just like when Dog acts like Dog Man. For sure, it's a solid time, but not quite my favorite of the season.
What's this I hear? What wondrous thing is this? The DEFCON klaxons ring.
Next is the final episode I haven't talked about from Save the World, Abe Lincoln Must Die. In a day's society where political satire seems to be fading due to the rise of political tension, this episode shows there are ways to make political satire funny, having Sam and Max go to the White House to investigate the president's strange behavior. This president, who I am assuming is modeled like Bill Clinton but inspired by George W. Bush, turns out to be a puppet. Okay, that's point 1 for this game's political satire, and it's up to Max to run against a marble statue of Abe Lincoln and become president. There's a lot of good jabs at politics here, how silly some laws being passed seem, how it always seems the issue at hand get passed up and misunderstood, and of course, the iconic war song sung by the Secret Servicemen.
Oh, war. What's it good for? Is it good for? Strengthens the economy.
Max being so serious about being president of the f***ing United States is just so great.
Wow, Sam. When I picked you for vice president, I didn't know you were such a politically correct bleeding heart liberal.
This episode brings us back to a simpler time when school and religion were the biggest issue regarding the government. For sure, it's my all-time favorite of Save the World. Such a great episode.
We celebrate the joys of war.
Well,
Let's not do that again.
Taking Bronze is the 4th episode of The Devil's Playhouse Beyond the Alley of Dolls. This one picks up on the last episode with a whole Sam invasion going on here. The plot is way more simple, but incredibly fun to play through. The sight of these half-naked Sam clones gets someone horny, I'm sure. This is easily one of the funniest episodes in my mind. Honestly, I can't talk much without going into spoilers, but if you've played The Devil's Playhouse, you know this episode is good, so let's just move on. Taking Silver is the 4th episode of Beyond Time and Space, Chariots of the Dogs. Now, time travel is a tough cookie for most media, so for Sam and Max to not only do it with hella funny jokes and good humor, but also as smooth as they do, it's honestly really well done. We go to the White House in 1963, Stinky's diner before Grandpa Stinky went missing, Bosco's store when it was run by his mom. Oh, and easily the funniest bit in this episode, Sam and Max talking to their younger selves.
wouldn't you rather grow up to be as cool as I am? With a boss car and a detective job and a huge gun? Would I have to be as fat as you, too?
Despite having multiple different timelines going on at once, it never gets confusing. We even meet future Sam and Max, and somehow we're in the future at the least. I think that was a good call. Can I just say, Flint Paper is one of my least favorite characters in the game. I don't see a reason for him to be around. He's incredibly generic, even by the fact that he's a parody of crime-fighting detectives. So what are Sam and Max? But everything else, alongside explaining the one joke in the season that genuinely never made sense, makes Chariots the Dogs close to my number one.
Who cares? I don't need you guys or anybody else. Max never calls me names.
That's right, Poindexter.
Of course, my number one is episode 2 of Devil's Playhouse, Tomb of Sam and Mac. This is one of the most creative and funny episodes in the trilogy. It follows Sam and Max finding some old reels of their great-great-grandfathers, Samuel and Maximus. It has you switch through the different reels until you can get through each one. Some reels have the answers to others, other reels you can't really even start without dying. And mind you, this is the funniest episode by a mile. I love that Santa is our rival here, and the way they incorporate past characters into each story is honestly really creative. No doubt about it, this is my all-time favorite Sam and Max episode. Looking back at the trilogy, I'm sad not more Sam and Max has been made. We had a VR game in 2021, but that was about it. I really hope more comes from the franchise because I love these two, and I hope for the love of the MacGuffin that we see more of them in the near future. Good news, guys. While you guys were watching that video, I sent a voice reel to this casting director for a Sam and Max movie. I'm gonna get the part of Max! I just sent them furry porn.
Thank you and good day, sir.